Hey there, marvelous House of the Dragon fans, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about where is Vhagar, the truth about Aemond's missing dragon. Let's take a look. Throughout Season 3 of House of the Dragon, there's a story people can't stop telling across the Riverlands. A humongous dragon is loose and on the prowl, burning villages, scorching fields, leaving whole towns as smoked ruins. It seems like a story made to frighten children, but it's actually happening. And everyone, no matter if they're on Team Black or Team Green, thinks they know exactly who's responsible for these war crimes. Aemond One-Eye, probably the deadliest dragon rider alive. Not least because he rides the largest living dragon in the world. There's just one problem though, it ain't true. That's because Aemond Targaryen is not in the sky. As we've seen, he's flat on his back at Harrenhal, feverish, badly wounded during his first assault on this cursed castle, and increasingly under the spell of Alice Rivers, not to mention the hallucinations, or possibly dreams, of his mother Alicent. Let's not even talk about them. Meanwhile, the Greens are waiting for him to swoop in and save them, and the Blacks are scouring the clouds for their greatest threat. Vhagar more than Aemond, but they're a package deal. Or supposed to be. So basically, the audience knows that the most powerful weapon in Westeros is off his leash, and its rider has no clue what's going on. But in the show, absolutely no one has a clue. Before we get into it, I just want to remind you this is Vhagar, not just any dragon. She hatched in 52 BC, and by the time of this war, she's roughly 180 years old, and is the last living dragon from Aegon's conquest. In the words of the show, she's the largest of all known living dragons. She's the tempestuous beast that killed Lucerys and Arax over Shipbreaker Bay, and helped bring Rhaenys and Meleys down at Rook's Rest. To the Greens, she's the ultimate trump card. But she's gone, so here's the mystery. Aemond insists Vhagar would never leave him, even though Alice tells him she has. Maybe neither of those statements is the whole truth, but do we ever actually find out what is? Well, that's what we're here for. We're digging into the lore, into what Fire and Blood actually says, and into what Season 3 has changed about Vhagar and Aemond, then going into the 3 strongest theories for what's really going on. There will be spoilers for the finale near the end, so keep an eye out for the spoiler alert. Ready? Let's go. The last confirmed separation. So first off, let's recall what happened at the start of the season. In the opening episode, Aemond left King's Landing at his mother's manipulative request, and after a very awkward kiss, flew to Harrenhal on Vhagar. He took the castle, killed the remaining Strong family, and in the fighting, he was stabbed in the back and collapsed. He crawled to the only person still there, who then nurses him back from the dead, Alice Rivers, who gave Daemon his acid trip last season, as we all remember. After that, well, Aemond's physical weakness turns into emotional dependence on Alice. When he wakes from the nightmares, he's totally delirious, and Alice is always there, nursing him sure, but also controlling him in a way. And where is Vhagar during all this? Well, we don't know. We don't even see Vhagar drop him off, and we definitely don't see her leave. She's absent for the rest of the season, though we get plenty of reports. When Criston Cole and Gwaine Hightower reach Harrenhal looking for Aemond, they find the castle as haunted and empty as ever, and are told there's a sign of a large dragon nest, but it has been abandoned. Alice, meanwhile, tells them Aemond is long gone, and obviously she's lying through her teeth. In a later episode, at the Battle of Tumbleton, an enormous dragon flies into frame, and before you register it, you instantly think it's her, that Vhagar is back. But we know it's not. That's Vermithor, the Bronze Fury, Hugh Hammer's dragon. Rhaenyra describes him to the Dragon Seeds as the largest in the world after Vhagar, and perhaps the most fierce. The show might be trying to make you second-guess every foggy cliff and dragon silhouette to make you see Vhagar like a monster about to pop up out of the shadows. Don't fall for it. Whenever Vhagar shows up again, we'll know it immediately because she sure won't be hiding. So why does Aemond behave like this is impossible? Because for him it is. Vhagar isn't just the beast he rides, she's not a common sword. Their bond is something he believes can never be taken from him. And there's a reason why he thinks this, which we'll get into. Can a dragon abandon its rider? In George R.R. Martin's world, the dragon-rider bond is profound, exclusive, and most importantly, mysterious. Even after centuries of dragon riders, it's more or less unknown. But we do know a dragon isn't a common horse you hand to the next person willy-nilly. Traditionally, a dragon can take a new rider only after the previous one dies. This is exactly how Aemond got Vhagar. She'd been Laena Valerion's, and following her funeral on Driftmark, a 10-year-old Aemond crept out into the night and claimed the largest dragon in the world for himself. He lost an eye that day, but getting a dragon made up for it, as he says himself. Because of that history, we understand why Aemond tells Alice flatly that Vhagar would never leave him. In his mind, the bond just cannot work that way. They are bound together unless he dies. But like I said, the bond is a mysterious thing, and we know it isn't set in stone. The books are explicit that no one fully understands it. Dragons are described as emotional, temperamental, unpredictable creatures. They're known to resist commands or act on instincts humans can't read. So sure, there's no clear canonical precedent for Vhagar abandoning a living Aemond without his say-so, but the lore is unknown enough that the show has lots of room to explore it. And this isn't the first time House of the Dragon has poked holes in the dragon rider business. Last season, Seasmoke chose Adam of Hole, which complicates things, considering last we knew Seasmoke's rider Laenor was alive after faking his death. Sure, by the time Adam shows up, it's implied Laenor died off-screen, which helps prove a dragon can't just dump a living rider, but it also shows the adaptation treats the rules as flexible and intentionally unexplained, and the writers use that as a sandbox to play to their heart's content. Again, remember Vhagar's history. She served Visenya during the Conquest, then flew unridden for 29 years after Visenya's death, until Prince Balon the Brave, Viserys and Daemon's father, claimed her. Then Laena, then Aemond. Vhagar outlived nearly every rider she's had, and by the time we see her, she's well over a century old. No wonder fans call her a granny, but she's a granny that can double as a nuclear weapon. Aemond believes he controls the bond because he claimed her as a boy. But he forgets Vhagar is a living, ancient creature with a will of her own. She's older than the Targaryen dynasty, and she can go anywhere in the world if she wants. So if she left, the question isn't just whether it's possible to leave her rider, it's what could possibly force, frighten, entice, or persuade a creature like that into doing so. Changes from Fire and Blood. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about now is what goes down in the book. I'm not making predictions about the show. In Fire and Blood, this mystery does not happen. Not like this. Not at all, because Aemond and Vhagar stay together during this stretch of the war. Which means Aemond's wound, the fever, Alis nursing him back, that whole storyline is essentially an invention of the show. He does meet Alis and takes her as his bedmate and a spoil of war, but it's more of a hostage situation than anything else. In the source material, Aemond is actually riding Vhagar across the Riverlands, burning castles, villages, and settlements, basically becoming a gleeful war criminal. This is deliberate, a one-man war of revenge across the Riverlands. So all that destruction attributed to Vhagar in the show is actually caused by Aemond and Vhagar together, on purpose, in the book. Which means the show took one of the Dance of the Dragon's most terrifying partnerships and threw it out. Instead of Aemond as an active menace on Vhagar's back, Season 3 puts him injured and isolated at Harrenhal, while every episode someone mentions Vhagar is still out there ravaging the Riverlands without him. They transformed a military campaign into a mystery about agency. For storytelling on screen, I can kinda dig it. It makes Aemond vulnerable instead of just powerful and despotic. It also deepens Alis, giving her far more story than the few mentions in the book. Showrunner Ryan Condal has framed Aemond at Harrenhal as a man feeling isolated and alone, stripped of his usual power and drawn in his weakness toward Alis. It also lets Vhagar be an independent force of nature instead of a vehicle Aemond drives and parks here and there. Whether you hate the change or love it, it's a divergence made on purpose. But it makes me wonder, is the adaptation delaying the military campaign we've read about, or using the separation to change Aemond's eventual return to the sky completely? The 3 best explanations. Okay, let's rank them. Least likely to most likely. You ready? First, the simplest explanation. Vhagar is just being a dragon. She's huge, old, probably cranky. A dragon that size needs a massive amount of food. Her rider walked into a castle and didn't come back out, so she had to fend for herself. So the reports we're hearing, the burning around places like Windish Town, that's just Vhagar feeding and being territorial while unsupervised. They say the simplest explanation is often right, but I don't know how likely this is, because the attacks seem to happen exactly where Aemond's book campaign was supposed to happen, which makes the theory a little too incomplete. Next, Vhagar is hiding, protecting herself, biding her time until Aemond comes to her. This takes for granted that dragons are intelligent enough to be tactical. If Aemond is wounded and can't fly, Vhagar sitting outside Harrenhal is a massive stationary target for black dragons that could come hunting her. Caraxes, Syrax, Vermithor, Seasmoke, all of them. So hiding or being on the run until her rider recovers is the safest play. Plus, fits the show's framing of dragons as creatures with memory, emotion, instinct, all that. Alis even gives Aemond a reason to stay hidden. Going after Vhagar could expose him before he recovers. But again, there's the improbability of Vhagar understanding his medical condition, let alone carrying out a proper military campaign on her own. If there was a season where Aemond discussed the plans with Vhagar and High Valyrian, this would be more possible, but the show hasn't established that. And hiding doesn't explain the burning towns, unless there's some other huge fire-breathing beast with a taste for riverman flesh. Last, and I think the most plausible, is that Alis Rivers is behind the separation. I'll be honest, this isn't confirmed at all, but look at what she does through the season. She nurses the delirious Aemond. She controls his recovery, his information, his access to the outside world. She tries to turn him against his own mother, which is fair since Alicent was sent by Rhaenyra to kill him. When he asks point blank whether he's her prisoner, she doesn't answer. She's already shown with Daemon last season that she can manipulate perception, weaponize fear, and basically put the brains of powerful men in a blender. Whether it's literal sorcery, psychological tactics, or an eerie blend of the two, I think it's worth digging into. So there's a few versions of how this theory can play out. Version 1, while feverish and under Alicent's care, Aemond himself commanded Vhagar away and then forgot, suppressed, or never fully understood what he did. Alicent knows this happened but doesn't tell him. Version 2, which is basic enough that it might just be true, is that Alicent used some supernatural gimmick to interfere with the bond directly. Version 3 is the least magical. Alicent simply knows more about where Vhagar is than she admits, and deliberately keeps Aemond too weak, confused, and dependent to go find her. The finale leans even harder into Alicent's mystique, because the show wants you wondering about every single thing she does and says, and how it connects to Aemond and Vhagar. The motive stays the same whichever version you pick. Power. Aemond without Vhagar is half-blind, wounded, frightened, and reliant on Alicent. Aemond with Vhagar can probably burn down the Seven Kingdoms and crown himself King of the Ashes. Keeping them apart is how Alicent can mold him into her own ambitions and secure her future. But there's a counter here too. The show has never shown or implied Alicent can command Vhagar or any dragon. Being able to magically override a Dragon Rider bond would be an insane new power to introduce. Alicent can't really steal Vhagar, but she is the one person with the motive, the access, and maybe even the power to be behind it. You know what I think? The most satisfying answer combines all three. Alicent could have sent Vhagar away. Maybe she convinced the delirious Aemond to do it, and then Vhagar, left to her own devices, started hunting and burning on instinct. It could be anything. What the finale actually gave us. Spoilers for episode 8. Here's the spoiler warning for y'all who haven't seen the season 3 finale. Skip ahead 30 seconds if you're not caught up. So did the finale solve it? Not quite. It gave us more to scratch our heads at. Aemond, having just survived the nightshade poisoning at his own mother's hands, hears enormous wings and rushes out. He's convinced Rhaegar has come home, but instead his worst nightmare arrives. Aegon, badly burned but alive, on the back of Sunfire, also scarred but alive. So much for kinslaying. After some name-calling and threats, Aegon declares they're flying to Tumbleton, and Alicent steps in and says it bluntly. That's not possible because Vhagar has abandoned him. That's pretty much the only answer the show has given. And notice it comes from Alicent again, the one person who benefits from Aemond believing it. Aemond isn't deterred. His plan mutates. Now he wants to find Vhagar first, then ride to Tumbleton. So as of the finale, the biggest living dragon in the world is still missing, still unaccounted for, and now there are 2 brothers after her, along with their sister Rhaenyra, but she has enough to deal with right now. The finale also finally let Alicent tell her own story, and it's a doozy. She claims she was alive 100 years ago, when Aegon, on Balerion the Black Dread, burned down Harrenhal. She says her son was burned in that attack, that she turned to incantations older than the land, and bargained with things in the forest to save him, and that when he died anyway, she tried to end her own life, and she found she simply couldn't. She believes she's cursed to live forever, bound within the land of the old River Kings, for sharing in Harren the Black's greed. The implication is she's the wife of Harren, but take her tale with more than a pinch of salt. For all we know, she's saying it to sink her hooks deeper into Aemond. Or maybe she believes it. Either she's crazy, or she's for real an immortal witch tethered to Harrenhal, casting old magic. Which does help the theory that she's at the center of Vhagar's disappearance. So here's my final say. I don't think Vhagar intentionally abandoned Aemond. No freaking way. The dragon lore, Aemond's bone-deep certainty, and the book precedent all point to a bond that's supremely important to both dragon and rider, no matter what. But Season 3 does make one thing crystal clear. Aemond does not currently control the most powerful creature in this war, which is a pretty big deal for both factions. I think Alicent might have caused or exploited that initial separation, and now Vhagar is surviving independently out there, hunting, moving, maybe unconsciously carrying out the very destruction Aemond commits in the book. The irony is Aemond spent his childhood feeling powerless. The spare, the boy without a dragon, mocked by siblings and cousins who had theirs. Then he claimed Vhagar and became the most terrifying figure in Westeros while still a boy. But now he's in a sickbed with a strange woman, forced to confront the question, had he ever really claimed Vhagar, or was he just the latest rider this ancient dragon allowed on her back? So, as always, y'all have the final say. Why do you think Vhagar disappeared? When and how do you think she'll come back? Would it be because Aemond calls her, or because Alicent Rivers finally decides to let him have her back? Drop it in the comments. I'll see you soon. Bye!